Hey team, so in chapter 14 there are some things that go on that you might be a little confused about. So to give you a little background, I want to talk about Solomon. So in chapter 14, Huck and Jim have this debate about whether Solomon, was he really wise or was he not? And so, um, and the point that comes up is that there's a story in the Bible where two women are disagreeing about whether this child is, whose child this is. Is it my child or is it your child? And both claim that it's their own child. And so Solomon, being the king of Israel at the time, he and being the wisest king, so the story goes, um, he is going to cut the child in half. So right about as he's about to cut the child in half, one woman sort of yells out and says, "No, no, no, no! It's her child. Give it to her." And paradoxically, that's how Solomon knows who the real mother is. It's not the mother, it's not the woman who said it's the other mother, it's actually that woman who claimed it was the other mother, if that makes sense. So the woman who said that it was the other mother, the child belonged to the other mother, she lied. It's actually her child. Solomon, knowing that because a mother loves her child so much that she would rather see her child go to another woman than be killed. So, or cut in half. So talking about the story, and in chapter 14, Jim makes an analogy. He talks about, like, if I have $1 bill and I cut it in half, and I give half to you and half to this tree stump over here, what good does the dollar bill do? And Huck's sort of like, well, you missed the point. The point was that Solomon wanted to find out who the mom was, and he did that. So, so it's a very interesting interaction. The reason why it's so interesting is because I think Huck takes a step back here. Up to this point, the relationship between Jim and Huck has been sort of on the ascent, and we see them growing in friendship, they're bonding, and they have sort of, not a fight, maybe a fight is too strong, it'd be more of a disagreement, but Huck does fall back on this understanding that he's grown up with, that blacks are inferior. And I think that's manifested here in Huck's use of the N-word multiple times, which he's called Jim the N-word before, but this time it seems far more pejorative because Jim isn't understanding Huck's point. So I wanted to read you a little excerpt of chapter 14 to help with your reading and to clarify some things. So I want to hear from you and let me know what you think, if Huck does actually take a step back here, or maybe is this just a fight between friends and Huck's just sort of like, well, he's just being stupid. So I want to read you. For me, it's on page 106. Feel free to find it. Feel free to pause the video and find where I'm starting here. It's the part where Huck says, well, but he was the wisest man anyway. Okay, so, well, but he was the wisest man anyway, because the widow, she told me so, her own self. I don't care what the widow says. He wasn't no wise man nother. He'd had some of the fetchedest ways I ever seen. Does you know about that child that he is going chopping too? So here in my book, I wrote that Jim's a critical thinker. Huck sort of takes things at face value, and, well, the widow says it, so it must be true. Whereas Jim, he's much more of a critical thinker. He says, I don't care what the widow says. I can make up my own opinion on this, and I don't really think that the widow's right on this. Now, this is a step back for Huck. Huck has always questioned what people have said, from Tom and the genie to praying. And here, the widow says that Solomon was the wisest man, and he takes it at face value, whereas Jim here is doing more of the critical thinking. Well, then, wasn't that the beatin'est notion in the world? You just take and look at it one minute. There's a stump there. That's one of the women, and here's you. That's the other one. I's Solomon. And this your dollar bills, and this year your dollar bills the child. Before one of yous claims it, what does I do? Does I shine around amongst the neighbors and find out which one the bill do belong to, and hand it over to the right one, all safe and sound, the way that anybody that had any gumption would? No. I take it and whack the bill in two and give half of it to you and the other half to the other one. That's the way Solomon was going to do it with the child. Now, I want to ask you, what's the use in that half a bill? I can't buy nothing with it. And what's the use of half a child? I wouldn't give a darn million of them. But hang it, Jim. You clean missed the point, blame it. You missed it by 1,000 miles. Who, me? Go on. Don't talk to me about your points. I reckon I know sense when I sees it. And there ain't no sense in such doing as that. The dispute wasn't about half a child. The dispute was about a whole child. And that man think he can settle a dispute about a whole child with a half a child don't know enough to come in and out of the rain. Don't talk to me about Solomon, Huck. I knows him by the back. But I tell you, you don't get the point. Blame the point. I reckon I knows what I knows. And mind you, the real point is down further. It's down deeper. It lays in the way Solomon was raised. You take a man that's only got 1 or 2 children, and is that man gonna be wasteful of his children? No, he ain't. He can't afford it. He know how to value them. But you take a man that's got about 5 million children running around the house, and it's difficult. He as soon as chop a child in two as a cat. There's plenty more. A child or two, more or less, want no concessions to Solomon, that fetcher. I never seen such a. If he got a notion in his head once, there wasn't nowhere getting back. He was the most down on Solomon of any I ever seen. So I went to talking about other kings, and I'll let Solomon slide. So again, here, like, Huck is, he kind of lets it go, but in his head, he's really sort of attacking Jim. It's like, I've never seen such a stupid, and then he uses the N-word twice there, back to back. So Huck here, I think, takes a step back, and yeah, Jim does miss the point. But Huck, I don't think, quite has the patience yet to deal with Jim, and so in his head, he says some pretty nasty things about Jim. So I'd love to hear what you think. Those are my thoughts on chapter 14. Yeah, so let me know.